Hello and welcome. Today we are starting a new series of videos. We're going to be talking about tips and tricks in Python. Basically, I'm calling this series Ask the Analyst because I couldn't come up with a better name. And ultimately, it's going to be based off of questions that I get asked at work. I figure if people are asking me questions, then they probably can't find these answers online. They might be able to, but I figure that I could probably passively aggressively send them this link and say, take a look at this video that answers your question. So today we're going to be taking a look at Pandas read CSV. I had one question today about how do I read a CSV that isn't actually using comma separated values, because CSV, right? How do I read a text file that has columns, that has tabular data, but it's using a different type of separator? This is where the documentation in Pandas is really helpful. I think it is very good documentation, personally. I am in here all the time, not on this particular one because I basically have this one memorized, but I reference the documentation in Python and specifically in Pandas quite a bit. And you have to get used to doing this. Frankly, you're going to have to get used to reading documentation, which may seem dry and boring at first, but stick with it. I found that at first I also didn't like reading documentation, but as I went along and I understood what it was actually talking about and why the documentation was written that way, I found that it was extremely helpful. So I do recommend sticking with it. I do recommend reading the documentation and reviewing it. So to keep this as short as possible, the fast answer to how do I read a text file or a CSV that is not in fact using C's, commas, as the separators in the text file, it's just a parameter in the read CSV in Pandas. Specifically, I am looking at Pandas reading a text file in that does not use commas. So the default is a comma, but you can in fact tell the CSV or tell Pandas what that separator should in fact be if it's not going to be a comma. So let's actually just quickly do this. Just so you know, I have data, two different TSVs right here in my same directory. This is data from the Occupational Employment and Wages Statistics from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. I just downloaded the TSV from their files. I actually have it open right here, right? I downloaded the data here. That's their data, and I downloaded the series here as well. So these are pretty large files. We're going to just take a look at reading the TSV into memory using Pandas. Just a quick look at what that actually looks like. Let's say that we want to take a look at the head of the OEWS data here. This is what it looks like. We've got some kind of series ID. We have a year column. We have a period, which in this case is referring to an annual value. And then we have some kind of value column. And then we have a footnote code that's another column that may or may not have a value in there, honestly. Sometimes it doesn't. And then it basically is structured this way. And we have this tab separator right there. So we're just going to read the CSV or the TSV into memory using something other than a comma as the separator. So in this case, we are going to say import pandas as PD. We're going to say df is pd.read CSV. And I'm going to say OEWS data.tsv. Now, if I just read this as it currently stands, and let me actually print and show you what this looks like, right? So this is the problem that somebody was running into, or this is along the lines of the problem that somebody was running into. I'm going to Python 3, run the process. And this might take a little bit of time to run because it is, frankly, a fairly large file. There we go. So this is essentially what they were running into. They've got these tab separated values, but it's not actually separating these out into different columns. This is actually all just one column here of information, and it wasn't properly separating it out. So what we're going to do instead is we just add in the extra parameter of sep equals, and we just say a backslash, right? That's the key right there, \t, and you can actually see that where that's popping up here in the text file, \t, just like that. What error am I getting? Spaces around the keyword. It doesn't like the spaces around my keywords. I don't think it matters. So we'll run this again, and this now we're using the separator of the tab separation, and you'll see that we get a different format here. And this is because we've got our series. This now, in fact, does line up with this particular column. This is our index along the left-hand side here. This is our year, period, value, footnote codes, right? And now we're actively parsing this as a NaN column. So you can see that this was all just one, it was thinking of this as just one column when it wasn't, and it was this is one row, and the value just keeps on going out, and now we're actually parsing this correctly. So that's very quickly how you do that in this particular piece. So there you go. Reading Pandas data frames in reading text files into memory via Pandas data frames with a slightly different separator than a comma, in this case a tab. Simple, easy. Go have fun.